Let's talk about the board. The board is the place where you determine the scenes that make up your story and lay them out in the best possible order for telling your story. You can see that my project doesn't have any scene cards yet. That's because the Save the Cat methodology says complete your title and log line before moving on to the beats, and complete your beats before moving to the board. I haven't completed my beats yet. I have one left. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. If I could type. Now when I complete the beats, Save the Cat will add the 15 beat scene cards for me. But now you also have the option to add additional scene cards based on some of the information in the Save the Cat books. We have the setup, homework and play, debate, home and work, fun and games and B story alternating, bad guys close in, external internal alternating, and 5-point finale. If you need more information about what these mean, click the cat head next to the appropriate set of cards or read the Save the Cat books. I'm just going to go ahead and check them all. Save the Cat prepares the cards and adds them to the board. You can see that some of the cards have a red color code. That indicates that that card is a beat card. So if I come into this particular beat card for the opening image and I make a change to the opening image in the card, then I come over and take a look at the beats. There it is. Some action happens here. The opening image beat was automatically updated based on what I typed in the card. And if I come in here, take that back out of the beat, come back over, take a look at the card has been changed automatically to match the beat. Now what can you do with a card on the board? Well, we have the scene heading, interior bus, we have the page number, the description, which is indicated by the D tab. I could put in other optional notes for the scene card. I could put in the emotional change and the conflict, and also I can determine whether it's a positive emotional change or a negative emotional change. If I double click on the plus minus sign, it'll turn green. That indicates a positive emotional change. If I double click again, it turns red to indicate a negative emotional change. If I double click it again, it goes back to kind of a neutral situation with no real emotional change. I can color code each scene card with up to 6 different colors. To color code, just click in one of the little boxes down the left side of the card, and the color code selector pops up. You can use the preferences menu to add as many different color codes as you like. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Character A Arc, and the selected color has been added to the card. Now if I want to remove the color, just click in it again. When the selector comes up, just click the Clear Color button and the color is removed. Now when it comes to moving the cards around on the board, all I have to do is click on the thumbtack with the left mouse button and drag the card to the new location. And you'll notice the page number is automatically changed for you depending on where you put the card. In previous versions of Save the Cat, the vertical position was automatically locked in so all the cards lined up within each board section. Not here. You can put the card anywhere you like. Just drag it, drop it, and pin it to the board. Now, one note about that is the section in which the card appears and therefore its page number is determined by where the thumbtack is placed. So if I move the thumbtack down just below the black divider line, it goes into that section. If I move it above the divider line, you notice the page number changed to page 1 because I'm really in the opening image section where the card starts. And that's where the thumbtack is. It's above the divider line. Now that could be a little confusing in that it almost looks like it's in the second row on the board, but it's really not because the pin is placed above the divider line. So remember that as you place your cards to avoid confusion. Now I can also delete a scene card just by clicking the red X in the upper right corner of the card. But if I don't want to actually delete the card, but I want to get it off the board for a while, maybe bring it back, maybe not, I have the litter box available to me. Now the litter box isn't showing at the moment, so I'm going to go over here and click the Show Litter Box button, bring it out, And let's say I want to drop this card into the litter box for a while. In this case, instead of using the left mouse button, I'm going to use the right mouse button to indicate that I want to move it off the board. I'm going to hold the right mouse button, drag the card over, and drop it on the litter box. And it places it into the appropriate beat section based on where the card originally came from. Now if I want to move it back to the board, again I just right click on the thumbtack, drag it over, and drop it. And in this case, it'll be pinned to the board wherever I drop it, not necessarily in its original location, unless of course you drop it in its original location. Now I'm going to go ahead and color code this card again. I'll click in the box. My selector, character A, arc. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a character and a location to this card to show you what you can do with it. So I go to characters, and I'll drag Bob over to the card and drop. Little character indicator appears. Location. Well, let me add a new location. The bus. And we'll drag the bus and drop it on the card. And the location indicator appears saying I've assigned a location. In addition to the board view, there's another way to view the cards. It's called list view. This little icon on the toolbar right here will switch you from corkboard view to list view. And that presents the scene cards in a list in the order in which they appear on the board and within the section of the board in which they appear. So here's our opening image. I'll scroll down a little bit. Here's the theme stated, the setup, and so on. Now what I can do with that, as you can see, is I can sort the cards in scene order as they appear on the board or chronologically. Now we haven't come to this yet, but you can enter a starting date and time and an ending date and time for the scene to indicate when the scene happens in real time. So when you click on sort chronologically, this will sort the cards in that date time order. Now we can also filter the list by color, character, or location, or a combination of all three. So I'm going to select character A, arc. Now the only card in the list is the card I color coded accordingly. As you can see, there's no other cards in the list. Let's just clear that. And all of the scene cards are returned to the list. Now let me go ahead and filter the list by character. We only have one character, Bob. So again, we have our one scene card in which Bob appears. And let me remove the character filtering. And now location. Let's select bus. And again, here's our one card that we've identified the location for as the bus. You can use this filtering to review all the scene cards for a particular color or the theme, character A, arc, and see how that particular aspect progresses through your story. You can filter the list by the character so you can see all the different scenes in which that character appears and what's happening with that character in those scenes. And again, you can filter the list by location to see all the scenes that appear at that particular location. And from this list view, I can also move scenes into the litter box just by right-clicking and dragging on the thumbtack and dropping it into the litter box. Now in this case, if I return it to the list view, it goes back to its original location because there is no corkboard to drop it onto. Now when you're in list view and you have the list filtered by color, character, and or location, and you run one of the scene card reports, that scene card report will only include the filtered list of scene cards. You can see this report only includes the one scene card that I have in my list. So if you want to include all the scene cards in the list, remove all the filtering. Now the report will include all the scene cards. So that's the list view. Now when I want to return to corkboard view, I just click the little thumbtack on the toolbar and it puts me right back into corkboard view. And we'll hide the litter box. Now because of the size of the cards, we can only show so much information when the card is on the board. the scene heading, the description, emotional change, the conflict, and some indicators to let you know that there's other information. So we have what we call the big scene view. The way to get into the big scene view is to double click on the title bar of a scene card. Now you can see the way I've got my screen configured, it doesn't quite fit. So I'm going to hide the title and log line, make a little more room. Now I still need a little more room, so I'll just drag this down. There we go. Now we can see the entire big scene view. So as you can see, we've got the basic information that we had on the card when it was on the board, but we've also got some tabs for the notes, the setups, the payoffs, characters, attachments, and the script. And here's where you can enter that starting date and time or an ending date and time for your scene so that you can use this to sort chronologically. Also, along the bottom of the big scene view is a list of all the scene cards with every one of them grayed out except the one you're looking at so that you can see your scene card in context. To change the scene you're looking at in the big scene view, just click on one of these little scene cards. You can also navigate between scene cards by using the little pointers here to go to the next scene card or the previous scene card. I want to show you something else though before we get into the details. I'm going to close the big scene view by clicking on the black X here in the upper right corner. This returns me to the board, or if I had come into the big scene view from the list view, it would return me to the list view. Before, when I went into big scene view, I double clicked in the brown area of the title bar. Had I double clicked on the setups indicator, it will take me directly into big scene view and the setups tab, and the same applies for the characters or the payoffs. There we are, right directly into the setups tab. So here's the list of setups for this scene. In this case, we've only got the one. There's a couple ways you can add setups to the scene. You can click the add button and type in a new setup that'll automatically be linked to the scene. Or, because you can add setups at any time that aren't linked to a particular scene, checking this box will include those in this list. So all you have to do is check the included checkbox here, and now that setup is included in this scene. I'll uncheck it to remove it. I can also delete a setup completely by selecting the setup and clicking the delete button. That'll remove it completely, not just from the scene. If all I want to do is remove it from the scene, just uncheck the included checkbox. You can also see that this particular setup has been linked to a payoff. If I want to change the payoff or use this payoff with some other setup, all I have to do is click the chain link over here and remove the link. And of course we've got the green arrow that indicates we can go directly to the scene in which this payoff occurs. If the payoff has not been linked to a scene, then this green arrow will not be displayed. Now payoffs work very much the same way. In this case we don't have any payoffs, so let's just check the show all available payoffs. And there we go, there's a payoff, and that's the one we want to use, so we'll include it. And then we can link it to a setup, so let's do that. And here we have one setup that's not been linked to a payoff. Dad gives Aaron $20 for Charity Kiss, so we'll go ahead and select that. And the setup is now linked to the payoff. If the setup had been linked to a scene, the scene heading would be included here, and the green arrow would appear, allowing us to jump right to the scene in which the setup appears. Let's take a look at characters. We just have the one character in this scene so far, but again, like setups and payoffs, we can check the show all characters, and here's another character, Aaron. We'll just include Aaron in the scene as well. Now obviously you can include characters in more than one scene because of course they appear in more than one scene. Another way you can add characters to the scene is by dragging and dropping from the main characters list. I'm going to remove Aaron from the scene, select the Characters tab, and now I'll just drag and drop Aaron onto the big scene view, and Aaron is added as a character. The same holds true for setups and payoffs actually. You can drag a setup that hasn't been linked to a scene, drag it over to the big scene view, drop it on there, and the setup is added to the scene. Let's talk about attachments. You get a list of the attachments that are linked to the scene, If I want to add an attachment, I can check the Show All Attachments, scroll down, find the attachment I want, and check it. It's now attached to the scene. I can also drag and drop attachments and drop them onto the big scene card like this. I'll right-click on the thumbtack for this attachment, drag it up and drop it, and it's now been attached to the scene. There we go. If I want to remove an attachment, uncheck the attached box, and that attachment has been removed from the scene. And just like with characters, the description for the attachment is the description of how this attachment applies to this particular scene. Now that you've got your scene figured out, in order to turn it into a full-fledged screenplay, you've got to write the script with the action and dialogue. I'm just going to click the script tab, and then to give me a little bit more room, I'm going to go into full board view. Now this isn't a full-blown word processor, but it does help you type a properly formatted script. This is just a little information to get you started, so I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to type action here. I'll just press return to go to the next paragraph. Now if I want to put in a character with dialogue, press tab, type the character's name, press return, and it sets the cursor at the proper position for the dialogue. And just press return again. If you want to do a transition, press tab again, fade out, and press return. Now deleting is simple. You just backspace, and so on. And it'll begin deleting and working its way up until you stop pressing backspace. Now I say this isn't a full-blown word processor because each of these paragraphs is stored independently so that it can later be exported to Final Draft. So I'm just going to put the dialogue back in. And if you want to add a parenthetical, just type an open parentheses, whispering, close the parentheses, and press return, and type the dialogue. Press return again, more action here, and so on. Now you can move up and down in the paragraphs using the up and down arrows as well. So it works pretty much like a word processor, but bear in mind it could be a little bit different. Now after you've typed the script for one or more scenes, you can preview the script. Under the reports menu, there's a script report. In a number of cases I've got scene headings only and no script, but here's the scene we're working on right now. Then when you've typed the script for all your scenes and you want to export it to Final Draft to polish it up and get it ready to send out, use the File menu, Export, Export to Final Draft. Well, at this point you've seen a lot. You've seen the board, you've seen the list view, and you've seen the big scene view. But you may be wondering, well, how do I add a new scene card? It's easy. Just click the Add a Scene Card button on the toolbar. A new scene is created and opened in Big Scene View, ready to go. I just want you to notice one thing. The page number is 31. That's because the last scene card I had worked in on the board was on page 31. So when I clicked the Add a Scene Card button, it automatically knew that I was in that vicinity, so it put the same page number on the new scene card. If that's not right, I can just change it. I'll put in page 2. So now when I close the scene card, here's my new scene card on page 2, correctly positioned on the board. So that's how you add scene cards. And that concludes your tour of the board.